Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode with the Crime and Coffee Couple. My name's Allison.
And my name is Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, Allie, babe. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm okay, I'd say. I know I usually say good, but I would say I have a splitting headache right now. You're the first time you're hearing this. I believe it's because of the excessive amount of coffee that I had this morning. I know we are the Crime and Coffee Couple, so I should be used to it. But man, I've been pounding coffees recently.
Why is that?
I don't know, because I just love the heck out of it. Maybe I'm addicted. I'm an addict of some sort. I don't know. Like,
How many cups have you had this morning?
Well, you and I were lucky enough to go to Starbucks, and we had a little, work date. You were doing your research. I was doing my own work. Got on a conference call and all that. And now the nice thing, again, not an ad, but if you go to Starbucks now and they have, if you drink there, they'll put it in a nice ceramic cup. A huge cup, got me a venti or whatever they call it. And man, I had two gigantic bowls, basically.
They were huge because I had a latte, an oat milk latte.
Yeah.
And I always do one pump of some sort of syrup. This time I did brown sugar, but it was delicious. But it was like I could go swimming in that bowl.
Oh, man, it was heavy, too. Just a lot of it. If you get like a bowl of clam chowder at a restaurant, it's basically the same size. And I drank the whole thing really quick. And as I was on my conference call, I walked up to him, put it on mute, and I was like, can I get a refill? And it's free refills if you're drinking there, if it's just like drip coffee and stuff.
Yeah, obviously I didn't get a second latte for free.
Right. But I mean, I basically did because I put oat milk in there and asked for a Splenda and they gave it to me. So, I mean, it's kind of a latte, right?
And you want to know what was different too when we ordered it with the mug versus the paper cups is that the guy brought it to our table.
Yes, so nice. It's so nice.
Now, it felt much cozier.
I know, we always talk about how we're ma and pa and support the locals, which we definitely do. But like, this is nice. This is a good move by Starbucks. Congratulations. I mean, I recommend stopping in and trying it out yourself. Now they're writing things on like the cups and stuff, like instead of just giving them to you as is. It's always like, thank you or have a great day.
More
or whatever.
Personal and nice. But if you follow us on Instagram, you'll see that I shared a recipe for lavender syrup.
Yeah, that's how you say it.
Lavender syrup. Let's try that a second time. So some coffee shops that I go to, Starbucks is not one. They'll have lavender syrup. Why can't I say the word syrup? Did you say syrup or syrup?
Syrup.
So a lot of places don't have it, like I said, including Starbucks. And some places, I don't know how they make it, but it tastes really strong and almost fake. But two coffee shops I've been to recently, it's so delicious. And since I can't get it at a lot of places, I said to myself, you know what? Why not just make it myself? So I ordered some food grade lavender buds on Amazon, which we'll share the link to it. And you can just steep it in your own simple syrup solution and put it in a container in your fridge and just squirt as much as you want into your coffees or lattes.
Yeah, it was delicious. I tried some this morning before I went to Starbucks and I had two gigantic bowls of coffee. So I'm probably looking at 8-ounce coffees, probably 6, 7, 8, maybe.
You better slow yourself down there, buddy.
I'm gonna have a heart attack. If
Not
I die
good.
on the air, then at least it'll be good for the podcast. So if I die, just please spread it, show your friends, be like, look at this fat bastard that just died on air.
But once again, then I won't be the Crime and Coffee Couple by myself.
You'll just be Crime and Coffee Alley.
Crime and Coffee Alley. Do.
Looking for a new mate, and I'm total slutty.
Okay, where did that come from?
Well, you have 2 kids, so I mean, you definitely put out.
The one person I've dated in my life is sitting to the left of me.
Yeah, and she definitely puts out every once in a while. Let me tell you, folks. Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody commented once, Mike, you make too many jokes about that.
Yeah,
well, whatever.
You're inappropriate.
Yeah.
And one thing I have to say is I'm not sure what you guys utilize to wake yourselves up in the morning, but Mike and myself, we wake up at 2 different times some mornings. And he has this alarm on his phone that someone needs to die over because it's so intrusive and loud and just offensive that it's every time I hear it, my blood instantly boils.
Well, what am I supposed to do? I mean, you're supposed to wake up, right?
And
I mean, that's the whole idea of it all.
This is happening at 5 something in the morning, and I am the type of person that I wear a Fitbit to bed. So it tracks my sleep, and then it vibrates on my wrist to wake me up in the morning, because on, the days that I go into work, I'm up at 4:30 and I don't want to wake Mike up. So he doesn't hear it at all. And yeah. Is that it?
That's it.
Well, it's awful.
Yeah, this is.
And I want to spit fire and venom and daggers at Mike's face every single time that goes off in the morning.
I call it GTFU.
And in my head, I think, what the F? This is outrageous.
Yeah, folks, this is what I live with. It's like she just goes off the rails and she's like, like I've probably heard her say in bed, how could you use that alarm? Like no less. I'm not even joking. No less than 100 times.
And yet he continues to utilize that alarm.
And yet she still asks. It's like, well, it's going to happen every single time. That's just how it's going to go.
Why? Why can't you put a Fitbit on your wrist and let the vibration wake you up and not bother me?
Yeah, I guess I could do the vibration. But, oh, you know what? Because it's done and I just get used to it and I just go to sleep on it.
It jars me awake. So.
Well, yeah, that's what it's supposed to do. So you're welcome.
No, the vibration on my wrist.
Oh, God. Okay.
So you can use that and wake up to that.
Yeah, I probably could, but that's
so that every morning I don't want to murder you.
Yeah, that's all right. So one more thing. I did have to run and put a hat on before we started the episode for our video people because my hair is all over the place and I definitely need to shave the old head again. So.
Yeah, you went to Starbucks with that head.
Well, yeah. I mean, who's going to care at Starbucks, right? I mean, I'm not seeing any customers or anything. I'm not on a video conference.
What about your wife?
Yeah, you can see me. And I definitely didn't try anything today, even though the kids are not home today. It's like I'm just like, yeah, it's not happening. I don't look good. I don't feel good. Like, the hair is not nice.
I have a splitting headache.
Yeah, it's just not gonna happen. So I didn't even try yet today. You're probably wondering.
All right, just please let's get started on this. So this is the murder of Alyssa Burkett. So it was about 9 a.m. on Friday, October 2nd, 2020, and 24-year-old Alyssa Burkett pulled into her usual parking spot at the Green Tree apartment complex where she worked in Carrollton, Texas. And as she sat inside her car, the windows were still closed, and likely she was just gathering her last minute things as we all do. As I pull into work, I've got a backpack, a lunchbox, my coffee, so she's probably grabbing everything so that she could bring it inside with her to work. So witnesses would later tell authorities that they saw a man who was holding a gun, and this man climbed out of a black Ford Expedition SUV. He walked up to Alyssa's car and fired the gun through her closed car window, striking her in the left eye and part of her face. So likely assuming that Alyssa was dead, hence being shot twice in the head, the man then turned and climbed back into his car and began pulling away. Meanwhile, a man named Darren Ickler was a maintenance supervisor who worked with Alyssa. He just happened to be standing only 15 feet away when he heard the blast from the gun. And unsure of even what was happening, he noticed a dark SUV backing out of its parking spot. And the next thing he sees is Alyssa climbing out of her car. She is bleeding profusely from her head, and she is walking in the direction of the leasing office in order to get help from her coworkers who were inside. So unbeknownst to the shooter, Alyssa had survived the gunshot wound to the face. So Darren is watching in shock as he sees the shooter suddenly now stop his car and sprint in Alyssa's direction, now holding a large hunting knife in his hand.
Man, what are you going to do? That's just a scary situation.
Absolutely horrifying. Meanwhile, the employees within the leasing office stayed inside because they were fearing an active shooter situation.
Yeah.
So there were bloody handprints, tragically, that were seen streaking the windows where Alyssa was desperately trying to get inside the building so that somebody could help her. So sadly, the man from the SUV began a frenzied attack on Alyssa. And again, this is after the fact that he had shot her twice in the face while she innocently sat in her car. Now he's stabbing her furiously and violently 44 times, plunging the knife into her body over and over until he fled from the scene in his black SUV for the second time.
44 times.
44 times. So at the time that he left, Alyssa was still breathing, despite being shot in the head and stabbed so many times. At this point, her coworkers came rushing outside the office, and they tried desperately to begin life-saving measures as they called 911. So the caller told the dispatcher that someone had just shot their assistant manager and only left in the car seconds earlier. The fire department was the first to arrive at the scene and immediately began tending to Alyssa, but tragically it was too late and Alyssa had died. So Alyssa Ann Burkett was born on December 31st, 1995 in Mesquite, Texas. to parents Josh Forsyth and Teresa Burkett. She was described as an incredibly loving mother, because she was a mother to her daughter Willow Ann. She was strong-willed, ambitious, fiercely determined, and driven. And her mom went on to marry a man named Chad Collard, and between her parents, she had 5 siblings. So when Teresa Collard was given the devastating news of her daughter's brutal murder, she was told that it was a black man who had attacked and killed her daughter. However, Teresa said she knew exactly who was responsible for her daughter's death, and no, it could not have been a black man. That it was a white man, and the man's name was Andrew Beard.
I'm guessing a previous boyfriend or whatever.
Right. So Teresa elaborated that Andrew was a very evil man who was in an active custody battle with Alyssa over their 1-year-old daughter, Willow. And the custody battle had spanned as far back as when Alyssa was still actually pregnant with Willow. So once Willow was born, Andrew began demanding full custody of their daughter, and Alyssa was adamant from the get-go that this was not going to happen. There was no way. So Alyssa and Andrew, they had met on a dating app 2 years earlier when Alyssa was 22 years old and Andrew was 30. So initially the relationship was very casual because, again, Alyssa was only 22 years old. She was just really trying to figure out what she wanted her life to look like. However, things quickly changed when Alyssa realized that she was pregnant. And her close friends recall her bursting into tears and hysterically crying as she tearfully handed over her positive pregnancy test for them to see. So as Alyssa progressed in her pregnancy, though, her doubts and her fears were eventually replaced with excitement. And when she realized that she was having a baby girl, she was absolutely thrilled. Willow Ann was born on July 23rd, 2019, and Alyssa immediately took to being a mother. It was just natural for her. Her young sister, this is Madison Grimes, she indicated that Willow just clung to her mother every second of every day. They were just 2 little peas in a pod. So after Willow was born, Alyssa went back to college and she started working, where she was ultimately killed, as an assistant property manager at the Green Tree Apartments. Alyssa hoped to one day secure a career that would give her the means to raise Willow in a stable environment where they didn't have to struggle living paycheck to paycheck. So after their daughter's birth, Alyssa and Andrew shared custody of Willow, and they each spent a few days a week with her. However, as time went on, Andrew began to push for primary custody, and he was forcing Alyssa, to drain her bank account because now all of a sudden she's covering all these lawyer fees and she's in and out of court hearings.
Scumbag.
So according to Madison, her sister was living in constant fear of losing her daughter, who was really the center of her universe. She worried that because Andrew was older and thus more financially stable, that he would basically have the upper hand in the custody battle and thus be granted full custody.
Yeah, unfortunately, those with more money usually have more options.
But I mean, that should not be the case.
I agree.
If she's an amazing mom, why would why would her daughter be taken away from her?
I wouldn't be taken, but at least split.
Right. And I don't think that Alyssa wasn't against shared custody. It was Andrew who was trying to bulldoze her and gain full custody of their child.
I mean, it'd be a really injustice if that happened.
So Andrew he was in an established career at a tool company. He owned a nice house and he even owned a plane. And since he had all the things that Alyssa could yet to afford, she realized that he had the upper hand. I mean, he was 8 years older than her. She was 22. He was 30. He was established. She was still in school. There's a big difference there.
Yeah, and owned a plane. I mean, that's a next step up.
Right. So, however, Andrew's mom, this is Lizette Bowers, she believed that her son was fighting for custody from a place of love rather than malice. Of course, mommy's going to say this.
Yeah, I'd love to hear this. Like, is she a drug addict or something?
No.
Like, how would it be? Like, why would it be even better in the kid's life to not see their mom? Like,
right.
I don't get it. Like,
100%.
I'd love to sit down this crazy lady and be like, okay, listen, I know this is your son, but like, why would you think it'd be good to take anybody away from their mother?
So really what she was saying was that she believed that he could provide Willow with more stability because of his financial security. So Lizette described Andrew as loving and warm and someone who operated from the heart. She indicated that her son was an amazing father who constantly doted on Willow. And she elaborated that anytime he had Willow, she would always be found strapped to his chest in a baby carrier. He apparently carried Willow around wherever he went because he wanted his daughter to experience the world right alongside him each day.
Well, that's cool. Good for him.
So in March of 2020, when Willow was 8 months old, the dust was finally beginning to settle, or maybe Alyssa thought that that was the case. Alyssa and Andrew were finally managing to find a common ground. They reached an agreement on a visitation schedule and established child support. Alyssa finally was taking an exhale and she was beginning to relax. Things were growing calmer and the custody battle seemed to be resolved. By this time, Alyssa was in a relationship with a new man. This was Ben. While Andrew had also moved on, he was in love with a woman named Holly Elkins. And this was a relief to Alyssa. She was hopeful that with Holly's support, that they would overall start to enter a cohesive relationship where they could all parent Willow together.
Co-parenting.
Right.
Yeah.
So Holly ended up sending a text to Alyssa that read, "Look forward to having a super healthy relationship with you and Ben." And Alyssa responded, "I hope your influence helps because I would love nothing more than us to all have a healthy relationship." So Holly and Andrew's relationship progressed very quickly. They began dating in April of 2020, and by the following month, they were actively shopping for engagement rings. By the summer of 2020, Holly moved in with Andrew. And Alyssa's hope was that Andrew's new love would lead to a more harmonious co-parenting journey, but this was very short-lived. So when I said the dust was settling and Alyssa was being able to exhale and finally take a breath, it didn't last for long. And it wasn't long before she started to notice that Andrew's demeanor was yet again shifting. He was becoming very hostile. And soon upheaval began yet again. So it's like she had this blip of time where it's like, oh, finally, there's some peace and we get to just focus on parenting Willow and being the best parents we can for her. Because obviously we know that more than 50% of marriages end in divorce, but you can do it cohesively together.
Yeah, lots of people do.
You know? So once again, here is Andrew, and he is demanding primary custody of Willow and dragging Alyssa back into court. Teresa noticed that Andrew was very short and rude, and Teresa, again, is Alyssa's mom. So he was very short and rude and hateful in the way that he communicated with her daughter. And because they have a child together, you know, she is forever tied to Andrew, and she's forced to continue to communicate with him about the arrangement of who's picking her up when. So the calm from March had taken a 180-degree turn yet again, and with this, Alyssa carried an uneasy feeling in the pit of her stomach. She also had the sensation that someone was watching her. And the reason she felt that way was she went on to tell her family and friends that Andrew just seemed to have an uncanny knack of always knowing where she was and what she was doing. So according to Teresa, when Willow was under her mother's care, Andrew seemed to just keep in constant tab, like he was constantly checking on Alyssa and Willow. And Alyssa's friend, this is Shelby, she recalls a time when Alyssa was out in downtown Dallas. She was at a bar, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, Andrew shows up. This was very random. We're talking about this random bar in Dallas. What are the odds that he just happened to go to the same bar on the same night?
Yeah, I mean, not like astronomical, but at the same time, like,
you know, there's a
like,
lot
okay.
of bars.
Right.
So Alyssa grabbed her phone and texted her shock at randomly seeing him and questioned if he was maybe somehow tracking her. So by this point in time, she felt like she was living her life looking over her shoulder in constant fear.
Oh, I promise he has a tracking device or a GPS or something like, or on her phone or something like that.
Something. So after Alyssa's murder, her family discovered a video on her phone that she never shared or posted. And it depicted Alyssa saying, "Hi everyone, my name is Alyssa. So this past year, I have been going through a custody battle, a very ugly one. I have a 1-year-old child. It's taken a toll on my mental and physical health. With that being said, I've become a lot stronger in the process. And I guess just my message is no matter what you're going through, stick it out. You can do it and stay strong. So maybe she was planning on eventually posting it at some time, but she had yet to do so. So things continued to be exceptionally challenging for Alyssa. And in September of 2020, this is 1 month before her murder, a man who identified himself as Frank Marrow called 911 and claimed that Alyssa was selling drugs out of the trunk of her car at work.
And that's a thing I was going to say earlier. If you have money, then you can pay people to say things and then, frame you in certain ways. And I'm like, the only way, I'm so sad I didn't say it, but the only way they're going to get her is if they say, make this thing out that she was some kind of drug addict and have somebody pay somebody to say so.
So, of course, they're receiving this phone call. And this man is explaining that he could both smell and see these drugs. And he provided Alyssa's license plate and described her car as a little Toyota Corolla. So with this, police visited the Green Tree Apartments and confronted Alyssa in the leasing office where she was working. Of course, she is completely taken aback by this.
Right.
So Alyssa was baffled, and she, of course, does not do drugs and does not sell drugs. So she quickly handed the keys to her car over to authorities. And when officers opened her trunk, what do you think they found?
Drugs.
Wow. They not only found drugs, but they also found a friggin' pistol.
Jeez.
And some cash inside, just as the caller indicated that they would.
It's probably like just enough cash to make it like trafficking and everything, and a kind of pistol that's unregistered to make it a felony or whatever it is. It's just, oh man.
Can you imagine? It's just like me. I'm like such a straight edge, like square. I'm picturing somebody coming into my work being like, I hear you're selling drugs out of the trunk of your car.
Or when that cop pulled you over and said, do you have bond papers? And you're like, what are you even talking about? I don't know what bond papers are.
I was 18 years old and I had dropped my driver's license. I realized that in science class in high school, and I was driving to Chicago to pick up my grandma and grandpa. And I was like,
you did every single week.
Every single week, I helped my parents out, and I drove to Chicago to bring my grandparents back to my house. And I'm sitting in science class, and I'm like, oh crap, I don't have my driver's license and I have to drive to Chicago. And in my head, I'm like, I've been driving for 2 years. What are the odds? And the one day I don't have my license, I'll be pulled over. Well, guess what happened? I got pulled over. I was 18 years old, driving with my very elderly grandparents.
In the backseat.
Yeah. And in the suburban town where we lived. In the office, I explained what happened to the officer, and he tells me, you need to get out and check your trunk for your driver's license. And I said, officer, it's not in my trunk. I think I dropped it outside of Bally Total Fitness. He said, okay, so let's drive over there and see if we can find it. I said, I don't know where I dropped it. It could have been in the bushes of my house. And we did end up finding it in my bushes. So the guy tells me, I don't even think you can drive. I don't even think you're 16 yet.
You are young looking.
I did look very young. And again, I was 18. And my grandma is saying to the officer, officer, she's a good girl.
It's not like you're out like partying like, middle of the night. Like this is, okay, let's say I'm not old enough to drive. I'm here like taking my grandparents somewhere.
It was like 5 p.m. on a Thursday, and I was driving with my elderly grandparents. And he asks me, well, do you have bond papers? And I said, I don't even know what bond papers are. I had never had a detention in my life. I'd never been in trouble.
He knows exactly that. You had no idea. He was just trying to like play with you and like make you cry.
And he told me he could take me to the station and arrest me. Okay, so that was traumatic. The second time ever that I've gotten pulled over happened in Florida. And I had just moved to Florida, and I had yet to transfer my license from Illinois to Florida. And he found out I was working in Florida and threatened to arrest me. So of the 2 times I've ever been pulled over, I've been threatened to be arrested.
Fantastic experiences with police officers.
What? I mean, what are the odds?
Yeah.
So this is kind of how I picture Alyssa. She is trying her ass off to be a good mom. She is a good mom. She's a fantastic mom. She's wanting to be successful. She's going to school. She's working. And now she's being accused of selling drugs. And she opens her car, the trunk, where there was no money, where there was no pistol, and where there was no drugs. And now it's there. So it's very obvious that Alyssa was being set up and made to look like a criminal, which then put her at risk for losing the thing that she had tried so hard, the most important thing in her world, and that is her daughter. So, I mean, it just goes to show what Andrew is potentially capable of doing.
Yep.
So she feared that she would be arrested for something that she had absolutely nothing to do with. And Alyssa was sure that the person who identified himself as Frank Marrow was obviously Andrew, because there was nobody else in her world that it could possibly be.
Well, wouldn't police know, like, look into this guy and see if he's Frank Marrow?
You know, she's obviously telling the officers that. I'm positive. She said, "This is not my things. I'm going through an ugly custody battle, and I know that he's trying to frame me."
Yeah.
So I'm sure they were listening. So later that same day, Alyssa texted her roommate Shelby, and she wrote, "He is going to try to get someone to kill me next." And those that knew Alyssa knew her as a very strong and brave person. So the fact that she was reaching out and crying out for help told everybody just how genuinely scared that she was. So Madison remembers receiving texts from her sister that read, "Come over while I walk outside. Lock the door behind you. Do you see anyone around you?" Madison noticed that things were only getting worse, and her family clearly recognized that Andrew was trying to have Alyssa arrested so that he could gain full custody of Willow. So they wondered, obviously this guy is getting desperate. So what else could he potentially be capable of? And they feared that he was capable of fearing Alyssa. And obviously Alyssa was too, seeing as that she texted her roommate and said, "He's going to get someone to try to kill me next." So this poor girl was living in absolute terror and turmoil at this point in time, when all she was trying to do was be a great mom to her daughter. So only 1 month after the drugs were planted in the car, lo and behold, Alyssa was dead. So when Teresa responded to the scene of her daughter's murder, she immediately told police that she knew exactly who was responsible, as she spoke about Andrew. So obviously at this point in time, the officers are like, yeah, the witness said it was a black guy that did this. Okay, so maybe Teresa's thinking he hired someone to do this, but regardless, she said Andrew was involved.
He's responsible.
And she's terrified, on top of the fact that she is grieving the fact that her daughter was just brutally murdered. Now she's terrified by the fact that Willow was actively with her father that day. And if Andrew was capable of murdering her daughter, he was also capable of potentially harming Willow. And Teresa voiced that she wanted her grandbaby away from this guy. So within hours, police pulled Andrew over in his Ford F-150 pickup truck for an alleged traffic violation. Both he and Holly, who by this time was his fiancée, were instructed to get out of the car while Willow remained restrained in her car seat in the back seat. So officers noted that Andrew seemed very unfazed and calm by the whole situation. Andrew was free to go because at that point in time, they lacked evidence against him. So he was able to leave with Willow because he had court-mandated visitation rights of his daughter.
Yeah, and at that point, like, nothing charged. It's just kind of questioning. And he was probably like, no, I'm not answering any questions. And it's like, okay, well, we can't do anything with you. So have a great day.
So, of course, police still have to do some legwork, and they ended up seizing his truck, and they told him not to go back to his house. So he, Holly, and Willow checked into a hotel. So when investigators searched Andrew's home that night, they came across evidence that included an envelope with incriminating notes that was scrawled on it. The notes included Alyssa's license plate number, the color and make of her car, and this is the exact information this so-called Frank Marrow provided police with when he was claiming of these alleged drugs that Alyssa was selling out of the back of her car. And they were floored that he was dumb enough to keep this incriminating evidence right in plain view in his house after Alyssa was just gunned down and stabbed to death.
Yeah, that's pretty stupid. I mean, it's not like, definitely, defining evidence that's going to like make him guilty. But I mean, you think you'd throw that away,
right?
At the very least, it's just really all it is a license plate, right, and some information on the car. But why would you have that?
It was the exact information he would have had to have given the officer on the phone call. And, this had been given a month ahead of time. So he had a month to throw this information away and he didn't. But like we'll always say, thank goodness that criminals are stupid.
Yep.
So during the investigation, authorities also discovered a tracking device on Alyssa's car. And right within plain view in Andrew's home, the lead detective found charging station as well as batteries that matched the tracking device that was found on Alyssa's car.
Okay, that's good.
So obviously we know that Alyssa was suspicious that something had to have either been on her phone or her car, because it was just, he knew too much when she was out and about.
I'm so sick of these narcissistic a-holes that just like overtake somebody else's life.
I mean, who does this guy think he is that
God,
he
obviously.
could just torment this poor woman and then eventually brutally kill her, the mother of his child? So authorities assume that he installed the device on Alyssa's car in hopes of catching her doing something that she shouldn't be doing in order to gain an advantage in the custody battle, because this guy was desperate. So when Andrew's F-150 was searched, investigators found 2 dark vials of makeup inside. It was in a backpack, and so it was foundation called Java. And it was a very dark shade of concealer that would have never matched Holly. So investigators immediately believe that he used this makeup to disguise his face during the attack so that he would look like an African American while he shot and stabbed Alyssa to death.
Blackface.
And it worked because that's what the witness said. So they also discovered a pair of men's hiking boots that he had cut up that were soaking in bleach, or they assume he was the one that cut them up. So officers found the sheath of a knife at the scene of the crime, but they were unable to locate the knife itself or the gun that was used to kill Alyssa. However, one day after Alyssa was killed, investigators found a black SUV, and it was abandoned less than a mile away from Andrew's home. And they soon learned that he had specifically purchased this car so that he could use it for the murder.
Well, is he a moron?
Yes.
Like, what did he think was going to happen? Like, it's just like, oh, I'm just going to leave it a mile from my house and nobody will ever find it. Like, didn't even set it ablaze or anything. Like,
Nothing.
just left it.
Just left it.
Eesh.
So
what a dummy.
Images of Andrew were captured on a home security system. It was him fleeing through the neighborhood from the black SUV. And once this vehicle was processed, investigators discovered blood in multiple spots that later proved to be Alyssa's, because we know he viciously stabbed her. What did I say, 44 times?
Something crazy. Like you say, overkill. It's just
Overkill.
obviously some kind of a very passionate killing. This is somebody that had a vendetta against her and just wanted, enjoyed this.
So on top of finding Alyssa's blood inside this black SUV, they also found a fake beard that was smeared with dark brown makeup. And the beard was like this cheesy beard that you would just find in like a Halloween shop. So it was obvious that he had put the makeup on and then put the beard on and used that to disguise himself.
Man, what a dummy.
So with this evidence, an arrest warrant was secured. Investigators found Andrew at an Airbnb where he was staying with his mom, Holly, and Willow. So Lizette indicated that while they were there, her son received a phone call informing him that he was going to be arrested.
I mean, is that a good idea to be like, hey, just so you know, you're going to be arrested? Like, wouldn't you want to just kind of surprise him?
I don't know how he got that information. I don't know who called.
Okay.
But 3 days after Alyssa was killed, Andrew turned himself in to the Carrollton Police Department, and he was charged with Alyssa's murder. So in the meantime, Willow was sent to stay with Teresa, while Lizette was confident that police simply had the wrong person, because her sonny boy would not be responsible for this because he did things from the heart, according to her.
Oh, he did it from the heart, all right.
So Holly felt the same. She was unable to believe that the man that she was ready to marry could possibly be responsible for something this horrific.
Yeah.
And from Holly's standpoint, she was engaged to the most wonderful man on the planet.
That's also a murderer.
So Holly went into the station in hopes that she could convince investigators that they had the wrong guy.
And at this point, like, you know, I mean, from her perspective, it's like, no, this has got to be a mistake. She doesn't know all this evidence. That they're like, you just wait a little bit. I think you're going to change.
Right. So she's sitting there in the office with, the investigators, and she's saying, that Andrew is just incapable of doing something this horrific, especially to a woman. So investigators spoke with her for about an hour with the goal that eventually they could convince her. I mean, obviously, the amount of evidence that is stacked up against this guy, it's just like insane. It's no doubt that he did this. So they were hoping to tell her about this evidence so that they could potentially even use her as a witness for the prosecution.
Yeah, because of something, any other stories you can think of that might make him, a little crazy towards women. Yeah.
Right. And, they're trying to convince her that this guy has got another side to him that you just didn't know about. So according to Holly, Andrew had been with her at home when Alyssa was murdered. But the detective is saying, I'm sorry, that's not possible. And that she was not being truthful or that she was mistaken.
And well, it's like, it's going from, okay, we're trying to just like, you're going to be totally innocent and we're trying to convince you your boyfriend's a scumbag. But now you're starting to get yourself wrapped into covering for him.
A fake alibi.
Yeah, you're going to be going to jail. So which ones, we know he did it and you're possibly going with him. So what would you like to do?
Exactly. And, these detectives are saying to Holly that there were hours of the day that he would have been gone. And, of course, they're looking at surveillance video. They saw him with this, black SUV.
It's like, Holly, we're going to start looking at your cell phone and start triangulating. Do you want me to do this and then you're in jail? Or now's your time to come fess up?
So despite what the detectives were telling her, she remained adamant that she would have known had he left the house. So she described herself as a stage 5 clinger of a girlfriend. Crazy.
Yeah, maybe get away.
So Holly tearfully told investigators that she was torn apart by what happened to Alyssa and what her fiancé was being accused of. And as the interview came to an end, Holly remained loyal to Andrew and remained at the Airbnb with Lizette. Lizette and Holly actually were bonding over their ongoing shared belief that Andrew was innocent.
Well, you got this folie à deux going on where there's two people that truly believe that there's no way this Andrew could have done it, right? And now they're feeding off of each other into this, the craziness of each other, being like, yeah, we've got this, let's stick by his side. And you want it to be like true. And I'm not trying to make fun of them. Like, I can't imagine being in this situation. Like, you think that this guy's loving and awesome and fantastic, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, right, they're trying to pin this on him. Good luck.
No mother would ever want to believe that their son was capable of something like this. I'm not throwing shade to Lizette in that way, but I'm also not the type of parent that's like, not my son.
Yeah, I'll throw a little bit more shade at Lizette, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I used to go into the daycare center and they'd be like, ugh, Cameron had a really rough day. He was running around the classroom, not listening.
Somebody, whatever.
No, he didn't do anything like that. He was just not listening, being a silly boy. And I took it as what it was, but I wasn't like, not my son. I was like, listen, kid, you got to listen to your teacher.
Laying on the floor when everybody was supposed to be sitting up.
Right.
Yeah.
So after 2 weeks behind bars, Andrew was released on bond. And obviously, this is something that Lizette was overjoyed about.
How is that possible?
So it doesn't last. When she told Holly about his planned release, Lizette is coming to Holly at their shared Airbnb and saying, hey, Andrew's going to get out of jail. And Lizette was taken aback, though, when Holly indicated that she would be leaving and going back to her home of Michigan.
Nice, Holly. Good for you.
So she's just puzzled. She doesn't understand why she's doing what she's doing, but she watched as Holly packed up her bags and climbed into an Uber, never to return.
Awesome.
So within 2.5 weeks of Alyssa's murder, Holly Elkins left Texas. She returned to her home state of Michigan. Upon her return, her childhood best friend, this is Stephanie Goddard, she said that Holly never once mentioned Alyssa's nor Andrew's names. It's like it didn't happen.
I wanted to get away from it and just pretend it didn't happen. Like you said.
Yeah, exactly. So within 7 months of her return, she had her own condo, a new Lexus, and a new boyfriend. And according to Stephanie, Holly was known to always have a man by her side. I'm sure you could all think of a friend who went from boyfriend to boyfriend to boyfriend.
Well, as a stage 5 clinger, you got to find somebody to cling on to.
Right. And oftentimes she must have been very charming or done other things very well because men tended to wrap themselves around her finger.
What sort of things?
I mean, I could only speculate. She must have been good at certain jobs. So she was always the one to control the relationships that she was in. So with Andrew now free, Detective Chevalier was exceptionally concerned for Willow's safety and contacted the federal government to take the case under federal firearm laws after an unregistered silencer was found in Andrew's home. And because of this finding, they agreed, and Andrew was rearrested only 8 days after he bonded out, and he was charged with cyberstalking using a dangerous weapon resulting in death. So in June of 2022, this is 1 year and 8 months after Alyssa's murder, Lizette received a phone call from her son, and she was stunned when he told her that he was planning on pleading guilty. Lizette, all this time, remained convinced of her son's innocence, believing that there was no way in hell that he was capable of murder. So she also felt that the crime itself had been very sloppy and done very stupidly, and she didn't think that her son was a stupid person, so therefore he couldn't be responsible.
Right.
She told him that he could not admit to doing something that he did not do, and she recalls falling to her knees as if she had been punched in the stomach. So Andrew spoke with the FBI as part of his plea deal, and he explained that the murder plot had been fully planned out. So now he's taking full responsibility of what he did.
Good.
So during this conversation, investigators learned that Holly Elkins hated Alyssa with a burning passion.
Wow.
As they looked into text messages between Andrew and Holly, they read the derogatory words that Holly used in regards to Alyssa. She called her ugly, fat, a bad mom, and Alyssa's contact information in Holly's phone was saved under "See you next Tuesday, baby mama."
Wow.
So it was clear that Holly's message to Alyssa about their healthy co-parenting relationship was an absolute farce.
Now I see why you're talking about Holly that way a little bit. It's yeah, this is definitely somebody who likes to have control, and it's just like, this is the person that he impregnated. He wants, she's probably like, he needs to impregnate me, and then we're gonna have kids together. And this,
like this sense of ownership over the partner.
Gross.
So with the revelation of these untrue, ugly messages, Alyssa's family believed that Holly's hatred was based on nothing more than sheer jealousy.
Right. And it's not illegal to hate somebody and, use bad words. So it's not like unless she was the one that planned this. So
right. So it's likely that she viewed Alyssa as a barrier to a happy little family of 3 between herself, Andrew, and Willow. As Andrew continued to speak with agents, they quickly saw that it was Holly who was running the show, telling him what he was going to do and how he was going to do it.
Here we go.
This is the type of girl that's in the bedroom taking a pin and putting it through condoms so that she could, get pregnant and now forever be tied and taloned into this person.
Professional stage 5 clinger.
That's just my view of this person.
Allegedly, right?
Allegedly.
Yeah.
So according to Andrew, Holly was the mastermind behind the planting of the drugs in Alyssa's car. This had all been Holly's idea.
Wow.
She had even tried to get Teresa, this is Alyssa's mom, arrested previously. So after Andrew and Holly failed to return Willow one of the days that Alyssa was scheduled to have her, Teresa and Alyssa drove over to their house to see what the heck was going on. Why did they not return Willow? And with this, they saw Holly driving a golf cart with Willow on her lap. So the cart drove to the end of the driveway, and Teresa climbed out of the car and took Willow from Holly. And then they strapped Willow into her car seat, drove away. So after they left, Holly immediately contacted the police, who arrived, and they were wearing body cameras. And officers captured the conversation where Holly indicated and claimed that Teresa had assaulted her when she grabbed Willow from her lap. She said to the officers, "She literally attacked me from behind or from behind side. I was facing the lake." So with this, she pulled up her shirt and showed officers scratches to her stomach that Teresa was allegedly responsible for, yet Teresa denies ever laying a friggin' hand on her.
It's just she said.
Of course, but then police agreed that the wounds really did look self-inflicted. So it was obvious that the previous attempts to remove Alyssa from the picture wasn't working, which meant that the next step would be to truly get rid of her. So Holly had written a text to Andrew where she expressed that she did not want to be involved with a pushover, and instead she wanted a man to protect his woman and child above everything. Andrew admits that he was emotionally drained and basically beaten down to agree to do whatever Holly wanted.
Wow.
So a week and a half before the murder, Holly left and she went to Mexico. But during her time in Mexico, while she was on vacation, she continued to text Andrew. And on September 25th, 2020, she wrote, "I hope you handle it. I'm not coming home to BS." And Andrew replied, "That's my goal." And Holly responded, "Well, it will be a whole different conversation if I feel like you are ride or die. If not, then I don't know." So according to Andrew, after he murdered Alyssa, Holly begged him to tell her the details about what he did. And she specifically wanted these details while they were in bed together.
Wow.
Gross.
Crazy. So, you know, a lot of the times with men, it's sexually, you know, linked somehow. And I guess with her, it might be too. Just that power of it all.
So on May 24th, 2023, Andrew Beard was sentenced to 43 years in federal prison. It's likely that by this point, Holly believed that the case was closed and it was behind her. She had moved on. She, like I said, went back to Michigan, got herself a new man, got herself a condo and a Lexus, and never spoke of what happened in Texas to anyone.
And now we know why.
So, however, a month and a half later, on July 6, 2023, this is nearly 3 years after Alyssa was murdered, Holly Elkins was arrested by federal agents in Miami after she was coming back from a vacation from the Dominican Republic. So here she is coming from this beach vacation to Miami, thinking life is grand, and she was given the shock of her life.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
I would love to have seen that.
So Holly pleaded not guilty, and she was charged with conspiracy to stalk and stalking using a dangerous weapon, resulting in death. Inspection of Holly's phone proved that she had searched for tracking devices. She was with Andrew when they, got the whole ammunition and knife purchase for this whole thing to happen. They also tied her to the makeup that Andrew applied to disguise himself as a black man. So I believe she was the one that potentially bought that. So despite the fact that Andrew was calm and cooperative as he confessed to their murder plan, no one could forget that he was a brutal killer.
Yeah, it's not like it's all Holly here.
No, not at all. So this man chased the mother of his child down after he shot her twice in the face and stabbed her with an incredible force and brutality that the detectives had never seen before.
Oh, he's a weak-minded, horrible loser and terrible father. Obviously, you're going to kill the mother of your child. Like, you're a piece of garbage, and he deserves death.
100%. So when discussing the stabbing, he basically indicated that he was putting Alyssa out of her misery because she didn't die as a result to the gunshot wounds.
Yeah, stabbing her 40 times. That's really good. You piece of garbage.
What a guy.
Yeah.
So in April of 2024, Holly went on trial where she was accused of being Andrew's co-conspirator. The prosecutor said that Andrew was a monster, but he was Holly's monster. And she maintained that she didn't need a lawyer as she did nothing wrong and had nothing to hide.
Good. You're screwed now.
Idiot. So after Andrew and Holly were engaged in May of 2020, she grew frustrated by Andrew's ongoing association with Alyssa, who was the mother of his child. And by summer of 2020, she began a campaign to harass Alyssa. And this included placing a GPS tracker on her car, making a false 911 call where she claimed that Alyssa was driving erratically on the interstate, the false reports about Teresa attacking her that included self-inflicted scratches across her chest and stomach. So this is a crazy person.
Psycho.
Imagine lifting your shirt and raking your fingernails against your body so that you can get somebody else in trouble. That's someone with a twisted mind.
Yeah, I just picture her like in her room or just like, okay, how am I going to get him now? Okay, and just like, those crazy eyes. And
100%.
just like, yeah, and you're going to have to do this, Andrew, okay? And it's like, oh, God, what a loser.
And, she was probably somebody that always got her way, hence her cockiness that she didn't even think she needed a lawyer, that she was just going to get out of this.
Fantastic manipulator.
So Holly and Andrew had also hired a private investigator in an attempt to dig up dirt on Alyssa and her new boyfriend, Ben. She also helped Andrew plant drugs and the gun in Alyssa's trunk and then told police that she was selling drugs to black men. So obviously she's also a racist.
Yeah.
It's just disgusting.
Selling them to black guys, and that was a black guy that killed her. Like, it's like those like horrible, like, stupid jokes. That's just like,
are you for real?
Yeah.
So they purchased dark clothing and makeup, as well as ammunition and a knife, and again, this dark makeup. And 1 week before Alyssa's murder, Holly texted Andrew and told him to handle it. Shortly after this exchange, Andrew searched the internet for how to remove gunpowder from his hands. Lizette, who had previously adored Holly, later described the woman as wicked to the core, and she could not imagine how a woman could orchestrate such a thing against another woman who was the mother of a young child that she had come to love. Lizette feels that had Andrew not met Holly, he would never have committed such an unspeakable act, and Alyssa would still be alive today.
With how Lizette was like so dumbfounded by the whole thing, I tend to believe her possibly. I mean, obviously, this woman just drove him batty and like insane.
But obviously he was very malleable.
Oh, yeah.
Like, had
He's
Holly
weak.
met you, she wasn't going to convince you to do something
I hope
this.
not. I mean, I can't speak for anybody, but I mean, it makes me sound pretty cool, so I'm good with it.
So Lizette acknowledges that she is the mother of a murderer and that what Andrew did was the worst thing that anyone could do. But again, she believes that had he not met Holly, this would have never happened.
Yeah.
So after a 6-day trial, the jury deliberated for 90 minutes. And what do you think they came back with for Holly?
Guilty as charged.
Guilty. So on August 15th, 2024, she was sentenced to 2 life terms.
Oh, wow.
Which was a much harsher punishment than what Andrew received, which was 43 years?
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I'm not against it, but that's really interesting.
This woman who thought that she was scot-free will be spending the rest of her days where she belongs, behind bars.
Yeah, and she's probably going to shack up with a bunch of gals in the old gal jail and be the queen bee, probably, because she's a fantastic manipulator, get people under her wings.
Mm-hmm. So Alyssa's family were both relieved and heartbroken with the verdict, since Alyssa was getting the justice that she deserved, while they were left to wade through the grief of losing her. Alyssa's younger sister, Madison, is left in a world without her best friend, who she described as her person. So Teresa recalled a day when Willow cried for the first time, asking to see her mommy just one more time. She explained, Teresa's telling her little granddaughter that mommy was in heaven. And Willow just asked this gut-wrenching question and said if there was a phone number that she could call in heaven so that she could talk to her mommy.
That's so sweet.
And when Willow is old enough, Alyssa's family plan on sharing the whole story of what happened to her. And it is their goal that when she does learn the truth, that she will see the beauty in her mom's life rather than the tragedy of her mom's death. And that is the murder of Alyssa Burkett.
I had to look up Holly just to see what she looks like. And man, she definitely needs a lot of makeup.
Yeah, she's one of those girls that, it's like when you strip her down, it's like the hair's probably fake, the lashes are fake, the makeup's contoured, and it's like, okay, let's wash you on down and you look like an entirely different person.
Yeah, like she can definitely do herself up and look like a porn star, but without any makeup or anything, I don't even know if she has a chin. I'm going to put this, obviously on the video, but I don't see a chin. Like, is there a chin there at all?
I don't know.
Like,
I'm not going to shame the looks of other women. That's for sure.
What about a woman that was the mastermind behind killing another woman?
She's rotten to the core. I'm going to say that. I'm going to leave it at that.
I'm going to say she may have been born without a chin. So check it out.
Maybe. Maybe she had a chinectomy. I'm not quite sure about that. But regardless, what happened to Alyssa is horrific, and I
absolutely
am brokenhearted for her family and the fact that her daughter will never know her mom. And it's just heartbreaking.
Calling like heaven for, that's like such a little kid thing and so sad and sweet at the same time.
It is.
So thank you for telling Alyssa's story. And it's so important, man, just to know that anybody's capable of anything if the wrong person gets involved.
It's sad. It's sad to think that, this poor girl was forever tied to this manipulator monster and just tried to do right by her daughter, and to the great length, power of the P word. I don't know what Holly was packing, but it was sure powerful.
Yeah, I guess so.
Like, how do you friggin' convince someone to murder the mother of your child is beyond me.
Yeah, sickening.
Sickening.
So thank you for telling her story, and thank you for listening. I'm talking to you listening right now. So if you love what we do, we'd really appreciate it if you can go leave us a 5-star review, or just follow us on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all those good things. TikTok, we're all over the place.
Tickety tock.
Yeah, you know us, a bunch of 45-year-olds just TikToking
I'm
away.
45. TikTok, you can't stop me.
That's right. She's very happy about herself.
Oh my God, I'm such a dork.
And if you really love, you are a dork and you're adorable. But if you really love what we're doing, then you can throw us some extra scratch, become a Patreon or an Apple subscriber. Go ahead on over to the show notes and do that, and you can get up to 4 episodes extra per week.
Is it? Oh yeah, 4. Absolutely.
Yeah, it sure
every
is.
Wednesday there's a bonus episode.
Yep. Every Sunday there's a free one. Every Wednesday there's a paid one. So
yeah. But thank you guys so much for being here with us. We appreciate each and every one of you. We hope you're having an awesome week. And until next time.